Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of my ranking of every movie I watched this year. Today I'll be counting down movies 110 to 101. Hope you enjoy. So to start off with number 110 is War of the Worlds. The 2005 adaptation directed by Steven Spielberg, based off the H.G. Wells novel, which I read this summer, and was a very thought-provoking novel, almost allegorical. The aliens, in how the aliens that were invaded Earth were comparable to other races potentially that and such that were vulnerable, and and as a result it humbled humanity. Obviously, War of the Worlds is famous for, in 1938, Orson Welles' radio message supposedly frightened a plethora of citizens in New Jersey, which turned out to be false. It's a myth anyway, I believe. But in the movie itself, it was entertaining, obviously, and not anything with Tom Cruise. You can't get any better than that. Like, he's such a uh, multi-talented actor. I may not agree with his religious views, but I mean, any movie with him running in it is already golden in my books. But no, and there were some compelling stories with his son and daughter, but it and obviously with the lack of source material, since the novel is fairly short, um, they have to make some things up and kind of Hollywoodify. And obviously Spielberg is very well informed with making movies with aliens in it. He continues the same shtick in this movie, and it's unnecessary. The book explicitly doesn't even gives little mention to how they look, and it doesn't matter how they look. It's more about the menacing threat that the aliens are, and by showing them in this movie, it takes away from the antagonists that they are portrayed as in the book. Furthermore, I just want to point out, I feel like this movie is no different than any of other Spielberg's movies, such as Jurassic Park. It has elements in the Jurassic Park or E.T., and it has elements in this movie that parallel what is seen in those movies, and it gets old. And it's just not for me. I thought it was an inaccurate portrayal of the novel. Next, we have another movie from Netflix. I really like my movies from Netflix. I'm not entirely sure why I watched this movie, but it's called All the Bright Places, which coincidentally stars Dakota Fanning, who starred in War of the Worlds, her sister Elle Fanning, along with Justice Smith from Jurassic World 2. And it has a strong message with it, being suicide prevention, and it's pretty forgettable, to say the least. I mean, the acting is good, there's no doubt about that, and they even got Keegan-Michael Key in the movie as the dad. And he's cute in some ways. They're typical coming-of-age story. I like these types of movies, but at the same time, it's a Netflix movie, so you don't expect to get a lot of satisfaction out of the quality, and it does wander most of the time. But regardless, it's still an enjoyable film. It's pretty relatively short. Next, we have 999. First of all, I gotta say, this is one of the best ensemble casts I've ever seen in a movie. A plethora of Academy Award winning and nominated actors, ranging from Kate Winslet to Woody Harrelson to Chiwetel Ejiofor to Casey Affleck, and to Michael K. Williams makes a weird appearance. I'm gonna start by saying this is a poor man's Baby Driver. Even though it came out a year before Baby Driver, and it also takes place in Atlanta. It's about a group of men who are working for Russian drug lords, and they go on a heist to acquire something for the Kate Winslet character, who's the drug overlord of Atlanta. And meanwhile, in the same time, you have who we think are the bad guys, the robbers, who are actually, some of whom are actually cops and are corrupted to commit these crimes in the hopes of getting paid off. And obviously, I don't think it's not trying to be realistic in this movie. I feel like there's just so much going on, but there's nothing going on. And I said that to you before. There's so many so many storylines. There's too many characters in this movie. It's just, it all comes down to that. I mean, and I can't care about all of them. It's a promising cast, but they fumbled the finish on this movie. Next one we have is a critically acclaimed movie, and one of which I had troubles getting into, The Lighthouse. And again, the performances of Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson were terrific. There's no doubt about that. It was hard to understand at times, obviously with the Boston accents. And the story was really confusing. At least I had a tough time getting invested in it. But there's no doubt that there's definitely something unique about this movie. I mean, it's an A24 movie. I mean, you can't get any better than this in terms of quality. I might have to watch this again this year. But even then, it was a movie made for a particular group of people. More so I mean, I might be the Jersey connoisseur, but I'm by no means the movie connoisseur, and anyone who is would heavily enjoy this movie. I believe that, but I'm just not been suited for these types of movies. Next, we have another movie that is also happens to be in black and white. Raging Bull. Now, this movie is based off the true story of boxer Jake LaMotta, and it's a very gritty movie. First of all, Robert De Niro's performance is spectacular. The way completely deserving of the Academy Award. I mean, this movie came out 40 years ago, but you think it may have come out 80 years ago because of the fact that it was in black and white. And I wouldn't say it's dated. Obviously, it's based on a true story, and it's really interesting, but it's a very long and intricate movie, and it goes through the entire life of him, and it's interesting to say the least. But like with The Lighthouse, it kind of tails off in the middle, kind of stagnates, and it gets a little boring here and there. But I wouldn't doubt this is a great movie, but I just not for me. Next up, for number 105 is Easy A. Now, Easy A is based off the novel Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and it's obviously a modern day retelling of it. And it's a funny movie. I obviously like Emma Stone, and you root for her to find her purpose, specifically as she delves in high school. But it's kind of just your average Hollywood comedy, and there are some funny moments, but it's not enough to warrant my top 100. Next, we have one of the few movies to be released in theaters in 2020, Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this movie was universally pandered by the internet after the first trailer came out, and they realized how bad Sonic looked, and they took a few months to reanimate, and I think that made all the difference in terms of my perception of this movie, because this movie could have been even lower down the list. But I genuinely enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's your, like with Unpregnant that I mentioned last time, it's your prototypical road trip movie. And it's almost a carbon copy of the other movie James Marsden starred in, Hop. In this movie, he is originally perceived to be an annoying sidekick, but gradually, I think he does grow into his own character and like he becomes more likable. I wouldn't say the same thing for James Marsden's character. I feel like he's he just kind of stays the same throughout the movie. Doesn't really, and that's it's not important for him to do that. I mean, he does eventually help out in the end to defeat Doctor Robotnik. But I mean, I am a big fan of Sonic the character. I don't really know why they needed to turn it into a movie, but I'm not complaining. They're supposedly making a sequel to this movie, so that's interesting. I mean, and they might be able to grow on this movie. There, it had some good points in it, and it had some meh to bad points in this movie. Next, we have The Lobster by Yorgos Lanthimos, and I watched this in August, and I still think about this movie from time to time. It's such an eye-opening movie in that the premise is this man has been seeking to find a partner, and he goes to this resort where if you don't find one in 1 month or in a specific amount of time, they will turn them into an animal, and it it makes you think about your humanity. It's eye opening in that case because obviously as humans we strive to feel belonged, and when denied that opportunity, it strips us of our humanity. And this movie is a terrific allegory for that sentiment. Furthermore, after they leave the resort, it gets a little bit weird, and I wasn't as invested. It kind of turned me off when they were in this almost cult. And then again, not to say that the resort was a cult itself. So the acting was top notch. Colin Farrell, Olivia Colman, Ben Whishaw, great performances overall. But the the storyline was just a little bit weird for me and convoluted in a way, and I just wasn't able to reach my top 100. It came close, but not enough, unfortunately. This next movie I had the same issue with, and that is The Devil All the Time. Like with The Lobster, this movie also stems on on one's humanity. With the father, main Bill Skarsgård, losing his wife and being unable to cope with her death, and as a result taking his own life, which ultimately results in this chain reaction that set up the whole movie. And I like what it's going for, but it kind of diverges away from the storyline. There's a main there's a side plot with this fanatic preacher who's desperate to seek some kind of satisfaction to the Lord, and even it causes him. He's so fanatical that it causes him to murder his wife, even though he thinks that he's attempting. It's in the best interest um, for the Lord, but he soon realizes that her sacrifice will not deem that, and so he ends up killing himself too. It's a really sad movie, and so many people die, and oh my, it's just such a it really is. The devil is there in there all the time. I mean, it's such a disturbing movie and how everyone is affected in their own way, and the plot is connected, and every character is connected in their own way. Again, I mean, I gotta say another great cast, like Var Pattinson, Bill Skarsgård, as I mentioned, Jason Clarke, Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan, and so there's a lot of issues in there that prevent me from fully being ingrained in the storyline and prevents me from putting it high on the list. And last but not least for this edition is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roger Rules. And I grew up reading the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and I would say that the Roger Rules story is probably my favorite novel of the bunch. And while it's been a long time since I read those books and or watched the movies, this still holds up. It's still a very wholesome and enjoyable movie. And I like the brotherly bond that Roderick and Greg have in this movie, and how Roderick strives to be a better brotherly figure to Greg. He gets around the end, at least. And the same thing, I mean, vice versa. Greg tries to be a better brotherly figure to Roderick, and it's cute to see. So that's my list for today. I hope you enjoyed, and arrivederci.